What the? You can do that?
This is the Macro Marvin channel, where he'll share his passion for photography, videography, watches, cats, cars, and much more. Enjoy and thank you for watching.
Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to share my experience, my second time experiencing the Tamron 150-500. Now, first of all, why would you even consider this lens? There are a couple of options for the Super Telephoto range from Sigma, from Sony, from Tamron, for the Sony system specifically, but they're now available in other systems. The price ranges for, I think for a long time, prior to the primary company making the lens, such as Sony, Canon, or Nikon, these lenses have been pretty expensive. So Sigma and Tamron have been great in making more affordable options. In this video, I'm sharing my second experience using this lens. I had already tried this out about 2 years ago. There were some quirks to the lens that I didn't accept at that time, so I wanted to give it another shot. Last time, I had noted that the stabilization was not as good as I hoped it would be, and I had also noted that the sharpness was probably not as sharp as where I would expect a lens like this to be. So for a second opportunity, I took this lens out to the first air show I've ever been to, where this was really put to the test. I put the autofocus speed to the test and the image quality output, as well as the stabilization. And as you know, on air shows, planes are moving really fast, there's a lot of action going on, so it would be the perfect test combined with the A7R5 to see if it could keep up and produce high quality images that I would be happy with. So if you're looking at the samples here, I took about 200, I actually took about 500 shots, of which I ended up being happy with about 200 to 250. Again, this was my first time shooting an air show, so I was basically learning on the spot on how to work out the timing of an airplane, how to get the propellers looking right. Sometimes they were frozen too much. I wanted a little bit more motion blur, but that meant I was going to sacrifice some sharpness in some way in the image. So this was a good trial and error experiment. Overall, sharpness, I think I'm in the same place as last time. Sharpness was decent. I would not say it's a strength in this lens. And it may be for a few reasons. One, the lens might just not be that sharp in general. And the second one being, at 500 millimeters, you're getting a lot of distortion from the environment. So the heat, this was a very hot day, and just that distance that you're shooting at. So sometimes you'll get, not artifacts, but you'll get those heat wave patterns or just a lack of clarity and sharpness in the image due to the distance that you're shooting from. So this might just be inherent in using a Super Telephoto lens, but that was something that kind of made me struggle, and looking back at my images and picking which ones I actually liked and which ones I wish would have been a little bit sharper. And not because I wasn't shooting at the right shutter speed, more because of what I'm telling you, of that distance shooting with the telephoto. If anyone has tips on that, how to resolve that, would love to know. Now, moving on to the image quality. It's kind of related to the sharpness. I think it was good. There were a handful of shots that I thought were exceptional, but the majority I thought they were just okay. The lens is giving you the reach and it's giving you decent sharpness, but it didn't give me like a pop. It didn't give me, it didn't make any specific image stand out to me in terms of the lens character or quality. It was more of the moment. So in that sense, I don't think this lens will give you anything special. It's more about the reach. Now, when it comes to autofocus, there were practically no lags, and I have photo examples and video samples that you could see here. It did a very good job of tracking the planes. I used the AI plane tracking feature on the A7R5, and I think for the most part it was pretty sticky to the subject. It was more of a matter of practice of user error or success on being able to follow a plane or predict a trajectory that the vehicles were moving at. So very good on autofocus. Stabilization. With a lens at 500 millimeters, stabilization is very, very important. The A7R5 already has several stops of stabilization. You combine that with about 5 stops, I believe, from this lens, and you're meant to have something very, very stable. For some reason, even with the maximum stability, I found it pretty difficult to get a stable shot. I know that if had I turned it off, it would be definitely jittery and it would be even more difficult. But I still think, after using this twice now, that the lens does lack stabilization. I think it's not maximizing the communication with the camera. I think they could have added a little bit more into that capacity. There were times in images where I know I was being as stable as I could with 3 points of contact, and knowing that the A7R5 is really good with other lenses, I thought I was going to get a little bit less shake. But as you see in the videos, there are a lot of examples where it might just be because I'm following a subject that's so fast that it's difficult for that system, that algorithm to catch up, or it's just not that great. So I was kind of let down with the stabilization piece. I was happy that I was able to get some videos, and these are straight out of camera. They are edited with the enhancer with a Portra 400 look to take off a bit of that digital edge, add some halation, some bloom. You can watch my other video where I'm sharing my first impressions of using the enhancer for the first time. But I really liked what it did to the image. But like I said, when we're talking about video, the standards are a little bit different. So I didn't mind it not being as sharp, but I did mind the stabilization. So in that sense, on shots that were a little bit less chaotic, I definitely got something more usable and a lot cleaner. But when there was a lot of movement, I think that's where the lens was struggling to keep up a bit with the stabilization side of things, not the autofocus. So overall, do I recommend this lens, or what are my final thoughts on keeping it or not? I decided not to because of those limitations that I found. I think when it comes to telephoto, you have to really, it's just a very difficult thing for the companies to hit all the marks, because we're dealing with super telephoto, which is really hard to control. Any slight movement can take you off frame. So I ended up returning it and it didn't quite hit the marks. It confirmed my first impression. I think it's a good lens overall for the experience, but I didn't see myself using it long term. I would be interested to see how the Sony G or G Master version of these telephotos perform, to see if the stabilization side of things and the sharpness piece maybe just that native communication to the camera might be that extra piece that's missing here. And I know a lot of you have probably used those, so if you know that that's a fact, that'd be great to know. I think that's my next stop to test these things out. I hope you enjoyed this video on the samples. Let me know your thoughts below if you've used this lens before. Thank you.